It's the tale of two books. It was the best of books. It was the worst crap I have ever read. Oh my goodness, let's talk Stephen King fairy tale. Okay, look, right off the bat, if you are a huge fan of this book, then you will either hate watch this video or you should just abandon ship immediately. If you are on the fence about it, about whether you should read this or not, I encourage you to stick around because I think I'll do a pretty good job giving you an overview of this. And if you hated the book like me, at least the second half, then this video will be your vindication. I'll just come right out and say it. This was one of my favorite things that Stephen King has written in I don't know how many years, probably since Revival. I loved this book. And I flew through the first half or so of the book. I mean, I just couldn't stop reading. I was so excited. Stephen King is so talented and so skilled as a writer, and the things that he does really well, he does in this book. So for instance, really good prose, it keeps you reading, it's very compelling. Number two, the dialogue is quite strong. And number three, and this I think is Stephen King's best trait, more than his conceptual approach to writing, it's characters. The characters are so good, and it's because Stephen King is doing two different things with characters. Number one, he's giving us a really interesting situation. And number two, he actually is giving us some emotional stakes where we genuinely care about Charlie, we care about Mr. Bowditch, we care about Charlie's father, we care about the loss of his mother, but beyond that, oh my goodness, do we care about Radar the dog. That dog is everything. And that is the problem with the book. Here's the thing. Stephen King does absolutely everything to get us to care about Radar, right? Now, I understand it's a fiction book. I understand that we're talking about a dog that does not exist in the real world. But oh my goodness, does Stephen King get us to care about Radar? Everything in the book, the whole plot, the whole thrust of it is Radar going to be okay? That's why Mr. Bowditch has been doing all of this throughout the entire book. It's not that the book is bad. It's that it's one of the best things that Stephen King has written in the last 15 years. And also, it has some of his worst vices. It's some of the worst stuff he has ever done as a writer. He's giving in to his worst impulses. And of course, the publisher's not going to call him out on it. So, okay, let me try and give you like a brief plot summary. Charlie is growing up in a small town in Illinois. He has a single father, and it's because his mother was killed in a horrible drunk driving accident. So she went out to get them dinner one night. She's walking back across this single lane bridge, and there's this drunk driver who hits her, and she unfortunately passes away. This causes his father to go into the depths of alcoholism. And the first good section of the book, I'm not quite sure how long, maybe 50 pages, maybe closer to 100. It's been a while since I've read that part. But essentially what happens is it's really about the story of his father desperately trying to pull himself out of alcoholism and really the people in his father's life. And Charlie doesn't know what to do because he's still a young man, he's a teenager as all of this is going on, but ultimately his father is able to get sober, which is wonderful and incredible. And then Charlie ends up finding a job with Mr. Bowditch. So Mr. Bowditch, he has fallen off of his ladder. Charlie is in the neighborhood. He goes to rescue him. But the thing is that Mr. Bowditch has got this super duper scary dog. And everyone in the neighborhood knows this. But Charlie ultimately decides he has to go and save him. So he does. And the dog is quite elderly at this point. It's a very aged dog. Now, along the way, Charlie befriends him, kind of reluctantly, but ultimately he starts helping him out with odd jobs around the house. And Mr. Bowditch is not doing particularly well, and neither is his dog Radar. Along the way, Charlie ends up finding out in the shed there is a portal into this completely different world. There's a staircase that just descends and descends and descends, and ultimately it takes you into this whole other world, a fantastical fantasy environment. Mr. Bowditch explains to Charlie that there is a contraption in this world that can reverse time. So if you put Radar on this and you spin it the other way, if you spin it backwards, then ultimately Radar will go back to being a puppy. he's done this a couple times already because he loves his dog so much. The story is very much about Mr. Bowditch and his love for Radar, and how that love is transferred onto Charlie, and Charlie's love and adoration for Radar. And so you as the reader, all that you really care about in this book, because Stephen King, the author, is the one who gets us those emotional stakes. He's the one who gets us to care about the dog. Ultimately, the story is all about trying to save Radar. And that's great. It's a really interesting story. And then Charlie goes into this fantasy world. He goes on this big adventure to get Radar all the way into the super dangerous back part of it, where you've got this castle and the kingdom, and you've got dangerous villains here. It's too much for me to even get into, and I'm not going to bother with all of that. The point, though, is he ultimately gets there, and then, can you believe it? He's separated from Radar. And that's where the book goes off the rails. And it's not because, oh no, we don't find out what happens to Radar. The issue is that Charlie himself no longer cares about the dog. As you can see, I'm getting pretty upset about this, but what would actually make me feel better is if you could actually subscribe to the channel. I am trying to get to at least 1,000 subscribers. That would be amazing if that could happen. So you are just one subscriber away from helping me get closer to that goal. What the hell are we doing? The whole book is all about trying to save Radar. That's the whole book. And then Charlie himself, our protagonist, no longer cares about Radar. I still do as the reader. That's what I want. I want this dog to be okay. This stupid fictional dog. That's all I've been reading for. And let me tell you something. I stopped reading the book because I'm going through it and then I'm going, okay, he's been captured. Now he's in a prison. And we get this like ridiculous Temu version of Quidditch. Oh my goodness, it's so dumb. The book becomes Charlie Reade and the Prisoner of Azkaban. It's Game of Groans, because my goodness, is this book going to make you groan. It's Wheel of Time to Stop Reading. Stephen King is so desperate to try and write a fantasy book that will kind of catch on, because fantasy is this big whole thing. I'm speculating here, okay? Admittedly, I'm speculating, but I'm quite sure that's what it is. Now, I understand Stephen King has written fantasy along the way, The Dark Tower notwithstanding, but my point is, he is terrible at this. And the reason why is because he's kind of doing the hokey pokey. He's got one foot in the fantasy world and one foot back in the real world. Fantasy, of course, works like any other genre if there are emotional stakes, but the characters, the world of Empis, never feels real. It feels very, very imaginary. It feels like a fever dream for Charlie. You have all these weird conceits that are going on in the story. Like, for instance, Charlie starts talking like them, and then all of these expressions that he uses in English, they no longer make sense, and he's starting to use colloquialisms that they use in Empis. And just his speech, his language changes, and it is so tedious. It's just not interesting. Either do a pure fantasy book, or do a book in the contemporary world, or even if you're going to do portal fantasy, because that's really what this is, but he's doing a terrible job of it. Because if you look at like the classic example of portal fantasy, for instance, or a classic example of the Chronicles of Narnia, well, the kids, they go through the wardrobe in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, for instance, in one of the books, they go through the wardrobe, and then ultimately they are pulled into the stakes and the consequences of all of their actions in Narnia, and they genuinely, truly care about them. Charlie does, but we don't as a reader, and that is Stephen King's fault. That is his fault as an author. If you can get me to care about a fictional dog, surely you can get me to care about these fantastical people and creatures in this world. It took me so long. I kid you not, I have never taken longer to read a Stephen King book in my entire life. And I will show you, I'll put an overlay in here. Here are all of the Stephen King books that I have, and I've read almost every single one of them. I'm well over 50 Stephen King books at this point in my reading life. I don't want to be accused of not appreciating his work. I don't want someone to say, oh, you just don't like Stephen King, you're attacking him for no reason. No, I'm saying that this is so unbelievably good until the second half, and then it's just the worst tripe ever. And then finally, when Charlie ultimately is reunited with Radar, let me tell you something. He doesn't care. He just doesn't care at all. He's like, oh, hey Radar, I'm gonna go save the mouthless princess, and by the way, I'm totally in love with her. Yeah, there's a weird love story where all of a sudden Charlie's in love with her, and it doesn't quite make sense, and it seems to be unrequited. It's you. I honestly think you almost have to read it, but it's almost unreadable. It's so bad. You have to read this in order to understand how bad the second half gets. I'm telling you, I stopped reading this book and I tried again and again and again. And I'm embarrassed about this, but I shouldn't be the one embarrassed. Stephen King should be the one who's embarrassed here. This took me, I think, 4 years to finish because I read the first, I don't know, 350 pages. I want to say it's about the first 350 pages in about a week. And then it took me 4 years to read the last 200 something pages. And it's just because I would try and I would stop. I would read a couple pages and I'd be like, oh, this feels like this scene has been going on for forever. It's really when Charlie's in the dungeon and this ridiculous Timu version of Quidditch. And I cannot describe it in any other way. It's just, oh, good heavens. Good heavens. I don't know what to do. Why did I keep reading? Like I say, I cared about Radar. I really wanted to know if Radar was okay. And let me tell you how angry I was when Charlie finally is reunited with his dog and doesn't care. Oh my, was I angry about this. It's so ridiculously frustrating. That's one reason. Also, I mean, I was already well over halfway done the book, and I'm like, I should probably see this through. I don't really want to DNF the book. But maybe I should have, but I'm telling you, that's the frustrating thing. How can I care so much in the first half and not care at all in the second half of the book? I wish he just did a pure fantasy book. Or maybe he did portal fantasy from the very beginning. And the thing is that the emotional core, the crux of the story, is about Charlie and his relationship with Radar and his father, and whether he can actually save this dog or not. There's all of these fascinating subtextual things going on, like Charlie has lost his mother and it was this horrible tragedy, and if he can somehow save Radar, in a way it's like, well, at least I saved Radar and I couldn't save my mother, but I can save her. Oh, it's lovely. And it works so well because Stephen King is actually really, really good as an author. But he also has just completely gone, I don't know where. Yeah. Have you read Fairy Tale? Did you like this? At what point did you stop reading if you gave up on the book? That is a good question. But also beyond that, did this work for you? I like portal fantasy, but the problem though is the emotional core of the story is about Charlie in trying to rescue Radar. But then what happens is that storyline gets completely abandoned, but the emotional stakes of the book are gone. And all of a sudden, we are told that we have to start caring about these weird creature, humanoid type things in this dungeon and this princess. And like, it just, I cannot tell you how much I hated it and just found it completely dull and uninteresting. And it takes an eternity. If he wanted to write a story about Empis, go ahead and write a story about Empis. Or maybe spend a chapter getting us to care a little bit about Charlie and all that. But I don't even know what would make the book work. I don't know if it's just a question of if the emotional stakes of trying to rescue Radar remained at the top of it, but Charlie himself changes throughout the book and then he changes back. And what I mean by this is he like transforms. He starts to care about the people of Empis and he becomes like the prince that was promised and all this ridiculous stuff. It's just eye-rolling and nonsensical, and it just, nothing feels weighty. Nothing feels believable. I don't know what to do with this. Okay, if you liked the book, did this actually work for you the second half, or is it that you just love the first half, or did you somehow like the second half more than the first half? Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.